Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and today we're going to take a look at the undervalued pitchers in the early to mid rounds of your fantasy baseball drafts that are going on pretty soon, if they haven't even started already. And some of those best ball leagues you're all in, everybody's already hitting the pavement when it comes to baseball season. The Welsh is back again to discuss some of these gems that are floating out there that could be very good values for your rotation. And our good friend joins us, Paul Sporer, once again. It's so great to see him. You know him from Sleeper in the Bust, from Fantrax. He also does all these starting pitcher profiles in the Fantasy Baseball Black Book 2023, available on Amazon right now. Paul Sporer, welcome to the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, you could see the mustache is in its full glory right now. And I want to know, how is that teaching job of mechanical drawing going at the middle school for you?
Fantastically. I haven't gotten fired.
What's the end game? Everyone go to the YouTube now. Make sure you subscribe. What's the end? No, is there more? What is the end game of this mustache?
It's been going for a while. It's not going to get more.
Are you trying to hide your spitball? It's growing long here. Is there anything else going to be attached to it?
No, it's fine. Leave it alone.
Okay.
So I guess the question number two is it like an oil treatment kind of thing, or like a wax thing?
No,
just
I like
natural.
A little bit. Yeah, I keep it trimmed. I use I use some lotion, but not actual beard lotion or anything. I just have like a dry face in the winter, so I get it all over everywhere. So
Welsh, I think you're onto something. I think that's when he goes out there and pitches in that over 30 baseball league he's in. Yeah. It's a little place to hide some of the extra stuff to get a little bit more
beard oil in there, and absolutely.
Yeah, he can't keep going to his hat and just doing the tip at the top. He's just
they're looking for that
mustache.
Why do you think I wear so much chapstick too?
That's right.
How many excited to have you on here on the show today? You're a Twitch superstar. We all know one of the best pitching minds out there in fantasy, and we're happy to have you kind of dissect this group of pitchers with us. So the boys have each provided 5 pitchers who fit this sort of range. We're talking about the SPs from SP 20 to SP 50. Those are kind of the guys that we've targeted. And if you want to work on players to target yourself, make sure you go ahead and check out our MLB draft kit. It's available right now, the Fantasy Baseball draft kit at fantasypros.com/draft kit. We've got cheat sheets, projections, draft prep articles, position primers. We've got everything, and it's free. Free is amazing. On top of that, if you're a premium subscriber to Fantasy Pros, you get more draft strategy content in our draft kit, along with our Discord access, which is fantastic. Welsh does stages over there. I do stages. We interact with everybody. We have a good time. So join us on the upgraded model of Fantasy Pros and check out the draft kit at fantasypros.com/draft kit for free. So, gentlemen, let's kick things off here. Sporer, you are the guest today. Give me the first pitcher that, when you're looking in this range between the 20 and 50 range, you think is possibly being undervalued in fantasy baseball in 2023.
A lot of times it's tough to buy into somebody that just broke out. Usually you kind of want to fade. That's the general strategy that's going to work. What goes up must come down is a strong baseball principle. But I think there's still some net value in Kyle Wright at SP 32. I really believe in what he did last year. Again, this was a premium prospect. I put stock into things like pedigree. Some don't, some do. Hey, wherever you're at on that, that's up to you. But I do. So when he broke out, I kind of believed early. I had him early as a sub in one league before he did anything. So I got lucky there. I'm not going to pretend I knew he was going to break out like that. But then I jumped on him in a couple other leagues when he'd already had a few starts going, because I said, hey, this is number 5 overall pick several years ago. Atlanta is a team that I kind of trust when they're developing prospects, and he really popped off. He hadn't really had any major league time of note. It was all bad, but it was so scant that I didn't think Kyle Wright could really be judged off of it spread out over 4 years. It was like 60, 70 innings, 180 innings last year, 24% K rate, 8% walk rate, 12% swinging strike. That's a core foundation of missing bats and not walking too many guys that I can really believe in. Sub 1 homer per 9, great team support. Not going to win 21 again. Doesn't need to. I think SP 32 is a perfectly fair price. I think we get a pretty close to repeat. Bump the ERA up a little bit from the 319 to 350. Bump the whip up a few points to 1.8 from 116 to like 118. That's a great play. I really like Kyle Wright at SP 32.
Yeah, cutting the walk rate from 14.3 to 7.2, raising the K from 17 to 23. That's certainly the secret sauce there for Kyle Wright. 21 games last year. You don't see a lot of guys winning 20 games anymore. You just don't see it. So I think that also speaks to, I mean, not only the Braves being a good offensive and defensive team, but also the Braves being a spot where, Kyle Wright is showing you he knows where to find the outs in lineups, the art of pitching, which is sometimes lost. I think that's something when you watch him pitch, you kind of see in him.
You know what's interesting about him too? He's one of those guys that you had this big major breakout that he obviously boosted up in value, but you kind of still feel like he's kind of a deal. He is still a deal,
right? Like they didn't boost him to the hilt. Like a lot of times,
well,
guys
because
like
he's not that dominant. Like he's not striking out 220 guys. I think that's the thing. People look at it.
He's not sexy.
And it's the wins. It's because of the wins too. That people are saying that's going to fall off. They're right. They're absolutely right. But they're thinking that because of that fall off that he's bad. And that's where we disagree. Not you and I, but like with me in the market. I think Kyle Wright will be fine giving back wins. But like you said, 6+ innings, 11 starts, six or more. So at the 6 baseline there, 21 out of 30 starts. That's fantastic. Under 5 just 3 times. One shellacking at Oakland that's hilarious. That's baseball just being a cruel mistress. Right. But I'm big into Kyle Wright.
All right. He is number 32 here on the SP list in terms of ADP. Number 33 is the guy that Welsh wants to talk about. Who is it?
I'm going to go with a young guy that has not done the big breakout like Sporer's talking about with Kyle Wright. And going on young pitchers sometimes can be dicey. But when you get hardcore command type of pitchers, there's a safety net that's put in there. And that's why I'm going with George Kirby in here. George Kirby, who is 33 on the FantasyPros ADP based off of a few of the sites they've got right now, going outside the top 100 on a great team for context, a defense that's going to get behind him. It was interesting. I was looking at this. Our mutual friend, Enosaurus, is putting together a projection. This just happened to come out today, just inciting with this, and I had put his name on here. A projection for his like location plus and stuff plus. And George Kirby had, I believe, the 9th highest projected location plus in all of baseball for this coming year, Aaron Nola being number 1. And what that tells you is a couple things. It tells you this is a guy with a multitude of double-digit usage pitches that he can put through the zone. Strikeouts are not insane. I think he was just under 25% K percentage. He doesn't walk, though, under 5% K percentage or walk percentage. But that location plus can get you into strikeouts and can get you into just inducing more ground balls, which I like, being able to maintain the zone. So a guy like George Kirby, he had a 30% K percentage on his four-seam fastball. He's just one of those guys that with that command, those secondaries can set up what is a big, powerful fastball. I saw him coming off of the COVID year at the Texas facility where he was pumping 101. So this is a guy where, Logan Gilbert is fantastic. Luis Castillo is going to get the pub, but George Kirby really has an opportunity to sneak into the team's wins. And if he gets the innings going, might be able to pump in higher on the strikeouts. I just think there's a good floor and ceiling with George Kirby that I don't take it upon him that he couldn't be a top 15 SP in baseball based on those command numbers. So post 30, I think George Kirby is kind of undervalued.
When we
I co-sign all of that.
Yeah,
I co-sign all that on Kirby. I really like him. One place where I maybe have been disagreeing a little bit with the market, and I almost considered putting his teammate on here, is I think there's been some pushback on Logan Gilbert that I don't necessarily agree with. I like him too, but I understand the Kirby love, and I have pushed Kirby over Gilbert, but I like both. And, we were making jokes on PitchCon about how they got that dog in them, but I think both these guys are that bulldog type, which is a nebulous thing. You can't really quantify it. It doesn't mean a whole lot, but when you watch it, you kind of get it. And what it is for me is like that command guy that can grind out the extra inning when you need it, right? If he's on his off day where normally you might go 3 or 4 because he's bad, he gets you to 5. And if he's on his good day, he goes from 6 to 8. And it's just, it's that command that can get you there because you're not wasting the extra pitches. And I really, really love where George Kirby's at. So that was a good pick, Welsh.
Thank you.
When I was hosting the PitchCon panel between Nick Pollock and Eno, we discussed Logan Gilbert versus Kirby because they're going basically sort of back-to-back in ADP. And to a man, both of them were very much on the Kirby side, not only for this year, but also long-term as well. We're still looking short-term.
That's what I was referencing.
Yeah, I mean, so it seems like, well, I thought the one that I thought when you were talking about it. That's right. You were there watching and trolling.
There was a lot of talk.
That's right.
There was a lot of talk about those two across PitchCon, but I was specifically referencing y'all's thing. And, again, they made good points about Gilbert and some of the issues that he has, but I don't believe he's done. I believe he has more to him as well. But I do think Kirby has the higher ceiling. I am on the Kirby train as well.
I'm good with both of them, but I think that we're all seeing that extra thing in Kirby where maybe he has that higher ceiling potentially that maybe
well,
Gilbert
also
doesn't quite have.
Gilbert is fascinating. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen in my life. I see him down at the Mariners complex. He is the last pitcher every single time working out. But like Sporer said, he's a bulldog. He pumps, he pounds the zone with 4 pitches that he commands decently. The thing that's interesting more about Kirby is Kirby's stuff I think is a little bit more deceptive and a little bit more devastating for hitters with that command as well. I don't know if he is quite at the level of pumping like Gilbert does, but they're both really good, and they're both really good complementary pitchers. Mariners have the potential to have like 3 great fantasy assets on the pitching side, which I don't remember the last time we've talked about that. And Kirby just happens to be the bottom barrel as far as I think ADP goes of all these guys.
And if Ray bounces back, I've never been a huge Ray guy.
Ray,
but
I wasn't even thinking about Ray. I wasn't even thinking about Ray. You're right.
I won't throw him in the trash. Like, he gets a billion Ks. That is fantasy relevant. They can have 4 guys that are 10-team mixed and up viable, which is hard to have in a rotation.
Mariners are going to be a good team this year, folks. That's why I'm going to have a lot of money on Julio Rodriguez for MVP in the AL. Let's go to the next guy on Paul's list. Let's talk about strikeouts. This guy's got him for days. He's got to learn a little bit more of that pitchability. It's Hunter Greene. Let's talk about it. Greene right now, he is at SP 35 overall. Kirby, by the way, SP 33. So we're still in that 30 range. So talk to me about Hunter Greene, Paul.
And that's where, underrated seems weird to put with a young guy that's on the rise. I got another guy like that coming up where it's like, underrated. Really? This guy seems like he's overrated perhaps, but I love the upside of Hunter Greene. And when you're looking in that 20 to 50 range and you're really trying to spike the big golden lottery ticket, I do think Hunter Greene is somebody that could do that. Don't put too much weight on the 6 starts in the second half. It's 6 starts, but it gave you a glimpse of what could be. When he finds command, it's over. And he's one of these guys that needs to learn to just trust his stuff in the zone. Just pump the zone. Yes, your park is scary. Yes, you'll probably give up some homers on pitches where somebody will turn around your 100-mile-an-hour heater and you're like, really? That number 7 clown, second baseman, turned around my 100. It happens sometimes. I watched Verlander throughout his entire career. When he was young, it used to bother him so much. When he got older and it was a solo shot to make it 4-1 instead of 4-0, he sloughed it off and did not care because he wasn't going to walk the number 7 guy to get to the number 8 and then create a funnel where you're turning over the lineup and now you've lost the game. And that stuff happens so fast. It can jump on you. I don't know if Greene's 100% ready to be that guy this year, but I'm willing to take the chance at SP 35 because in 10 and 12 team leagues, I'm going to have a waiver pool that I can lean on in case it doesn't work. But I want that rich upside. When you're in those league formats, you're trying to spike big. You don't want the boring as much. You can have some stabilizing boring, but you want the guys that can pop. You want the guy to be the next Spencer Strider, the next huge breakout. Hunter Greene can be that. We've seen it in glimpses. He throws hard. He's got nasty stuff. Yes, the park is scary, but I trust him. I really do at this price right now. And the reason it's underrated right now, based on when we're doing this, February 7th, is because the price is going to go up. I will bet so much money on it, barring injury, of course, but the price will go up. So if you do like Hunter Greene and you want to get a lot this year, you should probably get into some of the earlier drafts because I think once he's in spring and cooking and everyone's kind of seeing and getting excited, could be an SP top 25 by then.
I almost picked 30%. That is a great pick. I almost put him on that list. That slider usage change was so critical for him to be able to keep guys off the fastball. It was a game changer. I still like Nick Lodolo's slightly better.
Big fan
of him based off of based off of like George Kirby's type of things, better command, strikeout to walk ratio, right? A little bit better.
You get a little bit of a discount there, 4 or 5 slots down.
Early season interest when there was only one projection system, and Steamer gets a little bit wild, but Steamer, those were the only 2 pitchers outside the top 100 ADP, I believe, that were projected for 200 or plus strikeouts. There were like 21 pitchers projected at that. That was on Steamer early in the year. Obviously, that's changed, but Hunter Greene is like a little bit volatile. I have found myself in some drafts taking Greene over Lodolo in points-based ones where I'm looking for a little bit more punch on the strikeout. So Greene's a really, really good one.
All right, Welsh, who's the next guy on your list, the top 5 underrated SPs?
So I'm going to go with the guy that I get attached to a lot, just simply because of the impersonation, but I'm going to go with Blake Snell. I like Blake Snell for a lot of different reasons. I like him for his voice and the impression I get to get. Paul told me, did I tell you this, Joe? Paul told me he's going to tell on me. He's going to tell Snell about my impression.
Oh, so man, I think you'll like it. I can't believe you do that.
Yeah,
I think he'll 70 yards, man.
I don't know what y'all talking about.
He would not have a problem with it.
He's hilarious. Man. He's hilarious. But he's also a really good pitcher. pitcher, if you guys don't realize. Outside of that, he's really been attached to a lot of this changeup nonsense. It's been crazy. But if you go and look at last year, first half of the season, 5.22 ERA, stinks. Second half, 2.19 ERA, over 100 strikeouts in 78 innings to end out the second half of the year. He also was top 8% in baseball as far as K percentage goes in general. In that first to second half, check this out. His K minus walk percentage, so take the strikeouts and the walk percentage and minus them out, 15.6 in the first half, 27.3 in the second half. That's a 2% higher strikeout minus walk than George Kirby's total K percentage was last year, not even counting walks in general. So like Snell's he's got the elite stuff that he battles himself in year, which I worry about a little bit, but great team context, not great divisionally for the rest of the guys. Good for him. Rockies, Diamondbacks for extra wins. I think you can get teams wins in on it. I think the strikeouts are going to come back up. I think he could push 200. The big question is always, can he go deeper into games? As he's moving further in his career, I think he is going to get and break that curse a little bit. And we'll see what he does with the changeup. And Nick Pollock can take a breath. My man, Blake Snell, 37 in a row, 37 ADP right now. This is even cheaper than Kirby. Give me Kirby and Snell as like SP 4 and 5 or 3 and 4 all day long. I'll take some Blake Snell.
I like that combo a lot when you're talking about Kirby and Snell because of the way they complement each other, right? You get your big Ks and, the super high upside with Snell, you get more of your volume with Kirby because I think he's got a great shot to go 200 plus this year. And you kind of think about combining the two, and that's just a monster of a pitcher. So Snell's a badass. Love him, root for him big time, and I hope he has a huge season. And really started going 6 innings more often in that second half breakout too. And you look at it, 11 of his 24 starts, almost half, went exactly 6 innings or went 6 innings or more. He did go 7 a couple of times, and then over 5 innings in 14 of them. So we're really looking to get him into that consistent 6+ for Snell, and he took a step forward last year. And look, he's still only going to be 30, right? He's not an old pitcher. Pitchers are great when they're in their late 20s, early 30s like that. That's where the aces really come from. There might be another level here to kind of get back to the 2018 level with a better volume. I would not even be surprised as he kind of figures things out, learns how to pitch, and tones down some of those high pitch count innings. If Snell still has a career high innings in him, 180.2 during the Cy Young, I would not be surprised if there's a $190 in there at some point. Might not be this year, but I do believe in him a lot.
And if he does, it's 200 plus strikeouts, and
it's game over. Absolutely.
It's an easy. I mean, that's probably 220 to 230 on the strikeouts. And, just coming back, it's a cheap thing, but it's like this team context of wins. Think of that offense that's going to be behind him, and Manny Machado and Tatis and Juan. So that does matter. That might get you and pick you up a couple more wins. It's also pretty good defensively as well. Are you going to be shocked if Blake Snell has 15 wins with 225 strikeouts in a single season? No. Only reason he would be is because he doesn't go 6. So I'm in, man.
Yeah, he's getting better though.
Next guy on the list here, SP21 off the board. Just cuts the cut, basically. He's just right there, right at the cut line.
Right there.
And Paul Sporer, this is probably the guy I'm most excited about in 2023. It's Cristian Javier of the Houston Astros. So obviously flashed some moments last year of brilliance. We got to have some questions about, what's the workload going to be? How's that going to look? Is he going to be guys a 5-inning pitcher? All of that. But what do you see in terms of the upside? And, is 21, I ask the question, is it still undervalued? Because that's pushing this limit here.
It is. And it is pushing it up again. It's kind of like the Greene one where you're like, wait, undervalued. Don't you mean overvalued? No, I mean undervalued because again, if you're in a shallower format, 10 and 12, where the waiver pool is more robust, you're looking for the guys that can be your next Spencer Strider. And he is the easy comp there. Cristian Javier is because of the 2-pitch dominance on a great team, right? Houston instead of Atlanta with his 2 pitches. And he is brilliant. He absolutely is. And you talk about, is he a 5 and dive kind of guy? 11 starts of 6+ innings. That's going to play and consistently, at least at that 5 too. What you really want to avoid when you got a 5 and dive, the scary thing about them is a lot of 4s, 4 2/3. They can't quite get over the hump to get you in that win situation. Drew Rasmussen, I'm looking your way, buddy. Not that it's your fault he's on the Rays. That's what happens sometimes. But with Javier, he got 5+ in 21 of the 30 starts, or excuse me, 25 starts. He had 5 relief appearances. So I'm not as worried about that with him. And like I said, he showed that he could go 6+ pretty consistently too. I understand the concern with a 2-pitch guy. We've talked about it for years. It's kind of a known thing. Do they have that third pitch? We're starting to see some guys that if their 2 pitches, on the 20/80 scale are 70 grade or 65 grade, then you don't necessarily need the third. Strider's shown it. I think Strider has 270, 75+ pitches, grade pitches. Like, it's insane what he's got. And Javier is right there. And I do think that he's kind of the Strider comp. And if you like Strider and you are a little bit afraid of paying the premium on him, where is Spencer Strider? SP
probably 5, 7.
Yeah, 6.
Okay.
And say you're a little bit nervous about paying that. Javier's the guy you get. And to get basically the same thing, right? You can't get your Louis Vuitton, so you want to go to Target and get something cool. It's not quite Target, maybe whatever is a step down from Louis Vuitton. But like, I think Cristian Javier is that dude, and I think he's awesome. And they clearly are going to be trusting him in Houston, and so I think he can have another massive season. I fully believe in him, and I do think for what we're looking at here, SP21 is a little bit undervalued because he can easily be a top 10 guy.
I want him on all my teams.
Yeah, me too. Now, Welsh, it's not all about all the young guys necessarily. Sometimes some of the old farts get a little undervalued and underappreciated too, like the 3 of us. So next on your list is who, Welsh?
Yeah, I'm going to go with an old fart who, by the way, I am older than. I just realized I'm
You're
like
older
6.
Than this guy? Wow,
I am 6 months older than this guy.
Ooh, I checked the mailbox for the ARP card. I believe it's in there.
Old fart range, unfortunately. But I think this is another one of those core pieces I want as part of my rotation. It's Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton has got a 49 ADP in drafts right now. Now,
also his age. Ironically.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't have a great ERA.
Aren't you older than him too, Joe?
Joe, I think you're the oldest here, or before the oldest.
Definitely, but still. But the difference is you can't tell because I look exactly the same.
I'm actually the prospect here. I'm the baby. I'm the youngest of all of you guys. But
no he looks the oldest. I feel like
and you do, and it's not even that you look old; it's that you're dealing with Benjamin Button over here and babyface Joe. So
I used to have a baby face. I'm
the Paul Rudd of fantasy. Continue, my friend.
All right, continue on.
Charlie Morton. My big deal with Charlie Morton, not the best ERA, but what might surprise you, his Sierra this year was actually the lowest he's had in like 8 seasons. There's also a guy that has had 4 straight, I'm not counting 2020 because it wasn't a full season, 4 straight complete seasons of 200+ strikeouts. He's still putting up there.
Fantastic.
Also on the upper echelon, a fastball. There's an amazing team context. And he's doing the strikeouts, by the way, with only reaching 190 innings once of those 4 seasons that I talked about. One time he did it in 2018 with the Astros in 160. So yes, he's getting older. The strikeouts are still there. The Sierra was better than it had been. The fastball velocity is still up there. And you're on a Braves team, which if you get enough innings, you can, obviously he didn't get it last year, but you can put the context of 12 to 13 plus strikeouts. I don't think this is like top 20 SP, but how often are you going to find cheap 200+ strikeouts in drafts? I think maybe Charlie Morton was the other guy where you're looking at Hunter Greene in them. He's not young and sexy like those guys, but he eats up innings, he gets strikeouts, and he maintains it where there's a great defense and an even better offense around them next year. So give me Charlie Morton on all my drafts. I think he's criminally
also not
underrated.
Cost you much to get him in salary cap drafts because of the age.
Yep.
If forget the ADP, when we're talking about salary cap drafts, you know how that changes dramatically. Hunter Greene, upside, all those things you talk about, but Paul, when we're looking at a player of the advanced age of Charlie Morton, statistically speaking, hey, there's an opportunity here for him to be close to whatever Hunter Greene is. But in terms of price, even though they're going similar in snake drafts,
won't be close.
He definitely won't even be close.
You got to have a couple of these guys occasionally. Like we can have all the sexy dudes. Hey, Kirby and Hunter Greene and Nick Lodolo. Let's get all these guys. Hey, you want Grayson Rodriguez? You have to have some core pieces that are going to not completely.
That have already done it. You got to have guys that have done it.
But I'll even take risk with like Jacob deGrom, which no one else will. You have to have guys like Charlie Morton that will eat innings, get strikeouts, get you wins. They're boring. You just have to have a couple of these players to piece in there. And I think he's like the prime one.
Yeah, he's got the proverbial pelts on the wall. He's done it several times. You bring out the great point about the 4 years in a row with 200+ Ks for Charlie Morton. Totally agree about if you're playing in salary cap, he's not going to cost you a ton. Sometimes you want to leverage the ageism of fantasy baseball. We are very ageist. It makes sense. Aging curves matter, and Father Time is undefeated, et cetera, cliche. But Sometimes there's unicorns and you leverage that. Leveraged it last year with Verlander. Oh God, 38-year-old coming back from TJ. He's my favorite player. So like my bias helped me there, not necessarily any sort of great analysis.
You're preaching to the choir here. I was the 25-1 guy on the MVP, on the Cy Young rather, for Verlander. So
I'm like, why not? I'm going to go for it. And Morton's another one of those guys. And I think a lot of his issue last year with that 4.34 ERA was inconsistency, not the beginning of the end. I really think he's going to tweak, figure it out, get back under 4, and have a hell of a season.
I think the next guy on your list, Paul, really falls under that moniker too, of guys who get really underappreciated and just kind of float under the waiver, float under the wire a little bit for people, where they just don't really appreciate that Logan Webb is just a solid major league pitcher, and that's a good thing when you're looking for somebody's going to take the ball every 5th day. Somebody's going to give you a pretty good start. And I think that's something when you're looking at him going off the board right now. He is the SP, let's see here, 29, which, honestly, I mean, that seems kind of right. But I feel like we talk about Kirby, we talk about Hunter Greene, like all those guys, even Blake Snell, are all going after him. But I feel like in some of the leagues that we're going to be in, the sharps, that won't happen. Logan Webb will go after those guys. So you agree?
Greene will push above him. Yeah, absolutely. And this is why I like Logan Webb. And, I have been talking up some of the guys that are a little bit more of that high upside. And I still like Webb in a shallower format, though, even though he is kind of that boring floor guy. Give me that piercing volume of 190 innings last year. I think 200 is in the tank for him for sure. He's kind of a ground ball Matt Cain. Remember Matt Cain was a workhorse for several years. Just punch the ticket. It's there. All of his skill interactive ERA, Sierra, as Welsh cited earlier, FIP, all those, they never really worked with Matt Cain because of that fly ball tendency and the home runs that he gave up. But with Logan Webb, they're there. And you can see his skills are there. His strikeout rate did come down last year, 21% from 27. That's a big dip, sure. But his swing strike rate only came down about 2 points, which I think he can get that back and kind of live more in that 11.5, 12% range, which means the strikeout rate can go back up. It was 10.6 last year. You guys know the shorthand of doubling your swinging strike rate to give you kind of an expected strikeout rate. So he probably should have been closer to 21, 22 instead of the 20.7, which I guess is 21. So he was in range. But I do think that he can miss enough bats. And here's another thing too, with guys that don't miss a ton of bats, if they get the volume, all you care about, unless you're in a K9 league or strikeout percentage league, is the volume. He still had 163 strikeouts, which is perfectly fine for your SP3, SP4. I like Logan Webb. Stadium protects him a bit. Fewer games in Colorado, too, with the new switch. Maybe even Dodger Stadium, too, because they're not playing as many divisional games. Don't have to go into those 2 dangerous zones as much. Give me Logan Webb as kind of my solidifier. And then it makes me feel more comfortable to go after the Greenes and the Snells later on.
Welsh, I want to talk about the next guy on your list too, because for 3 straight years, he looked like one of the emerging fantasy studs. And then last year, he had an ERA of 5. I'm talking about Lucas Giolito, who's sitting right now at SP45. So it seems like you're buying back in for 2023.
So, I mean, could I have been more wrong last year about my predictions with Lucas Giolito on the bold predictions?
I don't think you were the only one. I think we all, I mean, everything was trending in the right direction for him.
Sure.
So I wouldn't nobody against him. I really didn't see anybody being against him.
And that is why I don't have any tangible stuff I'm going to tell you, except for one thing, why I'm buying back in. Is because he altered his delivery last year. I don't know if you guys all remember. He did this thing where his extension, he kept his arm inside his body, and then he kind of exploded. That was his change. Fell apart. And he acknowledged it. I was watching an offseason interview, I think it might have done with MLB Network, where he talked about how that was a failure. And he recognized that he did some offseason work. They figured out how to get the extension back. And he's kind of back to that normal, longer, not holding the arm in and outer extension. So my whole point to this is he makes a pretty concerted change and it decimated everything. A whiff percentage, I'm looking here, almost 4% or more lost on every single pitch as far as his whiff percentage goes from last season. And I'm going to just take it back to, like you said right at the top, this was one of those emerging guys. His K percentage had dipped a little bit 2 years ago. It was 33.7. It was 28 in 2021, but it dropped down to 25.4. His walks went up. If I just take back the pitcher I had before, I get a higher whiff percentage, Ks come back up, walks come back down. I think he is at the all-time low. I don't think people know what the hell to do with him at this point. Yeah. And listen, at ADP 45, post 150 overall drafting, I'm going to just do the buyback on Lucas Giolito. I got to be careful about my team construction, but I think this is a really, really smart analytical pitcher who looks at himself and understood the fall apart last year, that he can get back to where he was. So there's really nothing technical from last year that's going to side on for me here, that I simply got to say, like, this change in his delivery will get him back. And that's what I'm going to bet on.
And it's keeper dynasty leagues. I'd be buying everywhere right now too, because he like 3 great years for Lucas Giolito. I know 2020 was a shortened season and all, but he was great then too. I'm with you. I think it's time to buy back in. I think it's a fascinating discount. I mean, is the SP 45 off the board? It's not a lot of guys out there that have some of the seasons that he's got under his belt already. All right, let's go.
178. 178 is the average overall ADP right now of him.
That's really crazy.
I like that for Giolito.
All right, let's go to the big boys here. The guy who's number 1 here on the list for Paul Sporer, and this is a big guy himself, just like Paul, also tall, the tall drink of water. It's Tyler Glasnow. Well, that's debatable, especially the mustache.
It's not debatable if your eyes were.
I mean, Cillian Murphy. It's Cillian Murphy. Yeah. I mean,
come on.
So Paul's a pretty good looking guy, though.
Don't lie to me, guys. You can flatter me. Don't lie to me.
Just like in that PitchCon conversation, this was another guy that everybody's in the pitching fantasy world seems very high on in 2023.
Yes.
So you are also buying back in the Glasnow, getting back to that elite version of himself this
year.
Getting
to it. Let's be honest, right? Let's getting to it, because he has all of one season over 108. And this was the guy I was referring to earlier when I said I'll have another guy that's, you're saying underrated. Don't you mean overrated? We're paying a huge premium for this guy. I get it. I totally get it. And initially I pushed back against it back in October, November, when I was starting to see it push up. I'm like, where are they putting Tyler Glasnow? And I kind of looked a little deeper and I'm like, well, the thing of it is yes, the innings are a problem. But one of the things I love to talk about, kind of one of my fantasy ways of playing, is if everything's in place but the health, I'm going to take a guy. And if I don't have to worry about this has to go right, this has to develop with the skill, this, that, and the other. If it's just the health, I'm going to take the shot. Why? Because we can't really predict health that well. I know Tyler Glasnow has been injury prone, whatever you want to call it, for several years. His whole career, he has gotten hurt. But when he's out there, he's brilliant. And he's still one of the best potential pitchers that you can get. And I'm willing to take the shot at SP27 that if I spike that year, I'm not going to say I'm winning my league. No one guy is going to do that. You know, not every team with Judge won the league, and he had one of the greatest seasons ever. But if I'm getting him near pick 100, I'm going to take that shot. In NFBC, it's 90 right now. In RTS, it's 99. Give me that shot, because again, similar to what I said with Hunter Greene, this is going to go up. So if you believe in Glasnow, get some leagues now so you can get the cheaper version, because you're going to pay way higher come spring. I'm talking top 20 SPs. And that's why I want to specifically highlight that Glasnow is underrated compared to where he's going to be, because it's good. The price is only going to go up unless there's a scare for injury, of course, that's standard caveat. But he's just brilliant. He's a wonderful pitcher. He's so good. I really hope he stays healthy for the game, because when he's awesome, or when he's out there, it's a lot of fun. So I'm going with Tyler Glasnow, and I do think he's a bit underrated right now, just because it's only going to get more expensive.
I like Darvish and Musgrove, who are ahead of him still more. But, you know, there's guys like Framber Valdez, who I love Framber and all. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big Framber guy, but he doesn't have the same skill set necessarily that Glasnow has.
That's another take both, though, right? Give me the volume of the boring volume of Framber, and then the upside, kind of a lottery ticket with Glasnow, let's be honest.
Well, and if you're somebody like them. I don't know where you are, Paul, but you know, Welsh and I've talked about it quite a bit. Seems to be the very in vogue thing to do, which is kind of fading the very top of the board of pitcher and looking for a bunch of these guys, because right now they seem like really good values. That's exactly the kind of staff you want to build. I think those kind of names, and some of the names we're talking about. Welsh, who's that number 1 name that you're talking about? And I'm going to give you a pass here. You know,
I know
20 to 50, you went to 52. And it's
I know, sorry, I went even further away. I mean, it helped if I had the email, but I also maybe messed it up. But this is also just one of my favorite pitchers this year that I think is just undervalued in general, and it's Jeffery Springs, and I've talked about him a whole bunch. Actually, just writing some stuff up on him. Interestingly enough, you know, he had a really awesome 2.46 ERA last year, over 135 innings. I thought this was fascinating. His Sierra was 3.32. If he had qualified on the innings, would have been tied with Zach Gallen. He struck out 144 batters, had a 9.58 K per 9, which was a 26.2% K percentage. If that had qualified, that would have been right below Zach Gallen and above Yu Darvish. And a couple things I really loved about him, he made some grip changes last year, which saw a 2-inch vertical movement change for his fastball, 3-inch vertical movement change on his changeup, and he saw a 2-mile-per-hour increase on his slider. Like all of these changes
big for Springs.
Yeah, it is. And it's made really, really big. I sometimes wonder if Springs might be a similar version to like what we saw years past in like Corey Kluber. Remember Corey Kluber, like a later in his career, kind of ended up becoming a dominant pitcher. That I think the changes he's made have been
multiple
huge.
Cy Young Award winner. I think people
and check this out. Here's the only thing that's holding him back. It's innings pitch, because he was kind of him and Drew Rasmussen were using that like front end roll.
But they trusted him a little bit more.
I know.
They trusted Springs a bit more than Rasmussen, which really impressed me. He got over 100 once. He got over 97 different times. I think they let him go a little bit more. I almost trust him more than Rasmussen. I like the Springs call out here.
And I would say this too, all projection systems do not want to give him more. They want to give him about 140. They want a repeat of last year. I present the idea that what if he gets pushed to more of a normal pitcher after last year and we get to 150 or 160? Guess what? We might be pushing 200 strikeouts. Remember 167 innings pitched for Charlie Morton with the Astros in 2018 got him 200 strikeouts. Jeffery Springs, based off a lot of the changes he's made and some of those K numbers, if we push 160, 165, you might get a sneaky 200 strikeouts out of him on a pretty good Rays team, and he's dirt cheap. I went past the barrier that Joe talked about. I went to 52 to tell you.
Thank you very much. I could have given you my Reed Detmers love.
Give me that was I was gonna ask you what the
Reed
name
Detmers is somebody that I would really like, because I didn't see the 20 to 50, so I was just doing 5 guys, and so I had some guys way out of there. Reed Detmers is somebody that I definitely love, but I co-signed the Springs one. He came out. Took a lot of pride in what he was able to do, had a big season. And again, I believe that the Rays kind of trust him. We might over worry about the Rays. Sometimes I think this is not a closer episode. I think people are going to over worry about Pete Fairbanks too. I think that contract is going to get him into more of a full-time closer's role. And some of these Rays, and Glasnow too, time to take the kid gloves off. I think they're going to have some guys that are actually going to push this year. When healthy, they will push some guys. Colomé as a closer, David Price as a starter, Snell for at least 1 year as a starter. They've had James Shields when he was a workhorse. I think Jeffery Springs could have 180 innings this year. I really do.
All right. So the names on the board here, the underrated SPs going in those mid-early rounds. Welsh's list, George Kirby, Blake Snell, Charlie Morton, Lucas Giolito, and Jeffery Springs. Spore's list, Kyle Wright, Hunter Greene, Cristian Javier, Logan Webb, and Tyler Glasnow. All 10 are all targets in all of your drafts. So go check that out. And as you're drafting, don't forget the draft kit is free right now at fantasypros.com/draft kit. Go check it out today and start getting prepared. And of course, special thank you to Paul Sporer for joining us today on the program. Go give him a follow on the Twitter machine at Sporer. Go watch him play video games at Twitch and check out his mustache there as well. Paul, it's always great to talk to you and have you on. Oh, and check out all of his pitcher profiles in the Fantasy Baseball Black Book 2023 on Amazon, as well as all his Welsh's work on there too. Great stuff, boys. Way to prepare everybody for all this. Love you too, brother. Good to talk to you. All right, that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh and Paul Sporer, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.